On the morning of May 7, 2022, in the quiet town of Lander, Wyoming, something truly strange and unexplained occurred. A group of teenagers, heading to their regular weekend baseball practice, stumbled upon a sight that would leave them both puzzled and intrigued. As they crossed the local park, one of them spotted something unusual, a man lying still in the middle of the field. At first, the teenagers thought it was a homeless person, given the odd nature of the situation. However, upon approaching him, they noticed that his attire didn't match that assumption. He was wearing a long white tunic, flowing down from his torso to just above his ankles. His shoes were equally strange, not the kind of shoes one would expect a homeless person to wear. They looked like they were made from some type of smooth, rubbery material that covered his feet and ankles in a way that none of the kids had seen before. Even more peculiar, he wore a ring on his finger made of a material none of them recognized, shining in the sunlight as if it was crafted from a futuristic metal. His face was clean-shaven, with no trace of facial hair, adding to the eerie nature of his appearance. As they got closer, they tried calling out to him. "Hey, are you all right?" one of the teens asked. But the man didn't move. One of the braver teens crouched down to check on him, giving him a gentle shake. Still, there was no response. Concerned, they decided to call for help. One of the boys ran to fetch their baseball coach, who was just a short distance away, while another one of the group called the local authorities. Minutes later, the coach arrived with a first aid kit, ready to assist. He knelt beside the man and tried again to rouse him. When that didn't work, he soaked a cotton ball in alcohol and waved it under the man's nose, hoping the strong scent would wake him. Slowly, the man's head began to stir, and to everyone's surprise, his eyes fluttered open. The man, disoriented but now awake, sat up with the help of the coach. He was offered water and asked a series of questions: what his name was, where he came from, and what had happened to him. His response, however, was nothing short of baffling. He didn't answer in English or any other language the teens or the coach could recognize. Instead, he spoke in a language that sounded completely foreign, almost alien. The teens and the coach exchanged bewildered looks. By now, the authorities had arrived on the scene. The police, concerned for the man's well-being, immediately escorted him to the local hospital to check for injuries and to try to communicate with him further. Once at the hospital, the situation took an even stranger turn. A police officer, along with a medical doctor, attempted to question the man. However, the language he spoke remained unidentifiable. They couldn't make out a single word, and it didn't seem to match any known languages. The officer, Laura Almonte, noted that it was like nothing she had ever heard in her years on the force. Perplexed, they decided to try something else. The man, sensing their confusion, made a gesture as if asking for them to wait a moment. Then, something remarkable happened. He closed his eyes and seemed to enter a brief state of meditation. For about 30 seconds, he remained completely still. When he opened his eyes again, to everyone's astonishment, he began speaking in perfect, fluent British English. "Hello," he said calmly, "my name is LaMail." The authorities, startled by his sudden fluency, immediately began asking questions. Who was he? Where did he come from? What had happened to him? What LaMail told them next left them utterly speechless. He claimed to be from the future, specifically, the year 2336. According to him, he had arrived in this time period due to an experimental technology that allowed him to travel through time. He had been part of a research team working on what he called a temporal displacement device, and something had gone wrong, causing him to land in the year 2022. At first, the police and the doctor were skeptical, assuming the man was either delusional or under the influence of some drug. They informed him that they would need to conduct tests, including taking blood samples, to ensure he wasn't a danger to himself or others. To their surprise, LaMail didn't resist. Instead, he nodded in agreement and simply asked that they hear him out. Over the next hour, he described the world of the future in vivid detail, painting a picture of a society that seemed both utopian and technologically advanced beyond anything imaginable. In the year 2336, LaMail began, "There are no more wars. Nations, as you know them, no longer exist. Humanity has learned to live in harmony, not only with each other but with the planet and the universe. Women no longer experience pain in childbirth, as natural methods have evolved to the point where it's a painless process. Humans can connect with one another on a spiritual level, tapping into a collective consciousness that allows us to share experiences, emotions, and even memories." He continued, explaining how advancements in technology had eradicated most diseases. "Nanotechnology has revolutionized medicine," LaMail said. "We no longer need traditional hospitals. If someone is injured, we can transport them instantly through a system that uses their genetic code as a form of identification. It's like nothing you've ever seen." According to LaMail, vehicles as we know them no longer existed. "We've surpassed the speed of light," he explained, "and have achieved something much faster, the speed of thought. Our transportation systems no longer rely on physical vehicles with wheels, but on a technology that allows us to move through space and time with our minds." As LaMail described this futuristic world, the police officer and doctor listened in awe, unsure of what to make of his claims. He spoke with such certainty and clarity that, for a moment, they almost believed him. He went on to describe how in the future, screens like televisions and computers were obsolete. "Information is accessed internally," he said, "through a connection with the source of all knowledge. Every person has a unique spiritual essence, and it's through this essence that we identify one another, not by fingerprints or ID cards." Just as the conversation reached its peak, LaMail suddenly grew quiet. His expression changed, and he seemed to be listening to something no one else could hear. After a brief pause, he stood up and asked for permission to use the restroom, which was attached to the hospital room. The doctor, still trying to process everything, nodded and allowed him to go. LaMail walked into the restroom and closed the door behind him. Minutes passed, and when he didn't return, the police began knocking on the door. When there was no response, they cautiously opened it, only to find that the bathroom was empty. LaMail had vanished without a trace. Security footage was reviewed, but no cameras captured his exit. The building was searched from top to bottom, but there was no sign of him. LaMail, the mysterious man from the year 2336, had simply disappeared as suddenly as he had appeared. To this day, no one knows what truly happened in Lander, Wyoming. Was LaMail really a traveler from the future, or was he a brilliant hoaxer who somehow managed to fool everyone? His disappearance, along with the details he provided about the future, remains one of the most puzzling and unexplained events in recent history.